Fantastic. Thanks, Dave. Welcome, everybody. My name is Margaret Corrigan. I am CEO of Carringbush Adult Education, and I'm here representing VicTESOL today. The title of today's event is The Way Forward, How COVID Has Changed Adult EAL. I'm sure we've all got views on this. So I would like to welcome and thank in advance our presenters. We've got Angela DeShasho from Gordon TAFE, Libby Crawford and Jiga Adiaru from Chisholm TAFE, Matt Hines from Learning for Employment, Gulhan Yilmaz and Melissa Morrow from Victoria University, and Frances Laricha and Mary Laricha from Melbourne Poly. Welcome to you all. And I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land I'm meeting you from today, the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this acknowledgement to the lands on which you join us from today. I would also like to acknowledge the rich lessons that we as educators can learn from Aboriginal peoples who have created and maintained links through language that have lasted for tens of thousands of years. So the format of the event this afternoon, we've got presentations, around 10-minute presentations, followed by a short Q&A after each. And then we'll have participants in breakout rooms to unpack some of the things you've heard. Now, during the session, if you'd like to ask a question, you can do so using the chat function, and we'll try to come to those questions at junctures, you know, at the end of the presentation or at the very end of the time. If you've got any technical difficulties, there's a couple of emails you can use the chat function or email a couple of different email addresses there, VicTESOL or PL coordinator at VicTESOL. Hopefully you won't have any problems. And you'll be put into breakout rooms as we go along at the end. And Dave, could we just, we've got the poll up there, just to have a quick run through of the who we've got in the room. So we've got about 50% from TAFE, and then 25% from community sector, other RTOs and others joining us today. Most people from Victoria, 68% from Metro Melbourne, but lovely to see people who are not from Metro Melbourne. One of the advantages of COVID is that we've been doing so much more remote work, and anyone can join us. So welcome to everybody. And the third question, how are you feeling about the future of adult TESOL? Got one person's pessimistic. We hope that we can make you feel more optimistic by the end of the session today. And we've got 43% are optimistic. Fantastic. And somewhere in between, we've got just a little over half. So it's been a very trying time that we've had, but we've I think we've all learned so much, and we've got so much to share. So we hope that you'll get a lot out of today's session. Thank you. So without further ado, we will kick off with our first presenter, and that will be Angela DeShasho from Gordon TAFE. Thank you, Ange.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm coming to you from Wannawurrung country in Geelong, and just a little bit about who we are. Compared to a lot of the metro TAFEs and organisations, we're actually a pretty small department of English language. We deliver 3 levels, Cert 2, Cert 3 and Cert 4, all the EAL frameworks access, and the Cert 2 level is a partial course, and we have 4 ongoing staff in the program. Unlike a lot of the metro people institutes, we have not been in as lockdown as much as you guys, so we've actually tested a lot of the things that we're going to use moving forward. We've trialled lots of the things face-to-face and a hybrid model. So we're going to share with you some of our learnings today. So I think one of the first things to probably talk about is the important question, well, how is our practice changing? So what I've got on the left there is, this is what we did before COVID and what our new normal is going to be. So before COVID, like most places, we did 5 days per week face-to-face, 20 hours a week. Our new normal now is 4 days a week face-to-face and 1 day learn from home. How did we get to that figure? We actually asked our students, and that we trialled it and they told us that they liked it. So we're going to continue with that method. Prior to COVID, we didn't use any learning management system. The Gordon uses Moodle. It's called Gordon Online, and it's well established within our institute, but we hadn't used it with our cohort. Moving forward, all classes now use the learning management system, and as the levels increase, the reliance on the system increases. So I deliver certificate 4 in EAL Access, and we use the learning management system quite a lot. So we've gone from no learning management system to now we're at the point where we're just maintaining and improving our use of the learning management system. Digital literacy skills, of course, have been a huge focus. So prior to COVID, digital literacy skills were taught in the classroom, in a computer lab. Students would log on to the Gordon's IT network, and an EAL teacher would deliver that as part of their normal program. Whereas now our new normal is that a lot of those digital literacy skills development is supported also by library staff. They've recruited specialist staff who can provide support sessions. They've developed materials for our LMS and can co-deliver with English language teachers at the same time. So we've seen an increased investment on support for digital skills from our institute, which has been really beneficial. Prior to COVID, what were the digital literacy skills we delivered? Well, we did the big 3 or 4, the internet, Microsoft Office, how to use Microsoft Word, and focused on email skills and maybe a little bit of SMS language. But our new normal, that's expanded quite a lot to including scanning. I'll talk about that a bit later. Using video conferencing platforms, how to have etiquette for using those platforms, how to log into their institute account from home using Office 365, accessing and using an LMS, submitting tasks to their teacher in a variety of ways through LMS and email, using messaging tools for learning and what language do they need to use to be appropriate and polite in those messaging tools, and of course, lots and lots of different phone apps. Before COVID, we've always used class sets in our program as a support for our classes, and they were used in class only. By class set, there is no course book suitable for EAL Access, but we've just chosen a Cambridge University. We use upper intermediate face-to-face as just a good course book to use to base our themes on and to cover a lot of the underpinning skills and knowledge. Our new normal is that we lend them out to our students now, and they have them for the entire semester. And our students, that's one of the things they've really liked, and it's been really beneficial for teachers as well. In the past, before COVID, it was typical chalk and talk, get on the whiteboard, maybe use a data show explanation for grammar or target language explanations in class. Whereas now we've got a little bit more efficient and cleverer with the way that we present that. We've also recorded a lot of our interactive PowerPoints, made Zoom recordings of them so students can access them outside of class time as well. Probably the 2 big changes are the next 2, face-to-face interactions with volunteer conversation partners. So our program has always had every Thursday a group of volunteers that come and have conversations or do role plays with our students. And they used to physically come into the institute every Thursday. it required a significant commitment from them, basically half a day for half an hour or 1 hour's worth of activity. The move to Zoom was a bit challenging and daunting for a lot of our volunteers at the beginning, but in the end, it's worked out at their request that we maintain that as a Zoom activity, because it has just reduced their commitment to volunteer. It's meant that we've been able to increase our numbers of volunteers because that commitment is just so much easier for them to do. So that's something we're definitely moving forward. The other thing with Zoom that's been a game changer for me personally has been being able to using Zoom to access speaking assessments for our students in authentic conversations. So previously, I'd set up appointments for people. They would have to take their mobile phone, request permission, record their conversation on their phone. Then the files would be too big to email, so I'd have to find time in class to sit down and use their phones to assess them. However, now I can just set up a Zoom meeting, set it up that it auto records. I don't have to be there. Both people just attend the conversation, then it gets automatically uploaded to the cloud. Then I can just watch it at any time I want to, and I can send the link to the students and they can watch their own performance and analyze it and do some self-assessment. And that to me has been a game changer. Number one, because it's increased the amount of people that we can have access to. They don't have to be physically in Geelong to have that situation happen. And previously we didn't have a lot of collaboration with library support staff, whereas now that's really increased, especially with digital literacy skills. So what really has worked for us is, of course, Zoom for when we're in lockdown. We couldn't run lockdown without Zoom, but really Zoom is a permanent feature of our delivery from now on, and especially for use with volunteers and for conversation assessments. The learning management system, that really has worked for us for synchronous and asynchronous delivery. So even though I'm in the classroom 4 days a week, they still go into their learning management system. If there's a reading I want them to do or a listening activity, I'll direct them where to go in the learning management system. But in their learning from home day, everything's there in the learning management system for them to do independently of me. The other thing that was a bit of a surprise to us, but it's something so simple but has really been very effective, is just getting students really capable with using the scanning function on their mobile phones, especially for those students that don't have computer devices at home. They're able to just scan their written work, format it in the correct way to be able to send to us so we can print it, correct it, scan it back and send it back to them. And we practice all of that in class before they need it outside of class. And again, the course books has worked really well. And the reason it's worked well for us is it's been a good anchor for students and for teachers. What has not worked?
1 minute, Ange.
You can't recreate classroom experience online. And we've found don't have too many bells and whistles. And again, don't personalise the LMS to a particular group. Remember that you've got to use that resource over and over, so remove all the personalisation out of it. And too much asynchronous delivery doesn't really work. So I'm just going to quickly, in 1 minute, Mark, just show everyone what our LMS actually looks like. So that's my class. We don't have anyone who develops it or works on it. Our LMS is very simple, and we wanted it that each teacher could run and develop their own class. So we're up to week 11. I just have one. Each week I add a new section, and I've got a section here for electives. And if I just click and show quickly, last week we did Anzac Day and the Great Depression in our history class. We just use open forums, really simple technology. We haven't gone for all the bells and whistles. Again, it's just a great way to curate what you want. We've used colours. I use colours in my class. Red means it's a learning activity. Blue means that they know there's a link there. And anything that's green, they know is an assessment or something that they have to hand in. You can also record your voice directly in. So that's a listening text. and they have to
Okay, better stop you there, Ange.
No worries.
Yeah, that's really all very interesting, and there are some questions from a number of people. How do the support staff assist with digital skills?
Okay, they come in and co-deliver. So we might want something on email etiquette and how to put the subject correctly so teachers can file their work. We also they've developed specific courses on our LMS for all students of the Institute, but they've come to us and asked us, what is it that your students need? And they've developed things specifically for us, which has been great.
Great. What is the ratio? How many students to a volunteer in the Zoom conversation classes?
1-to-1 or 1-to-2. Or it depends how many we've got on the day. Yeah.
Do your students have access to laptops, or do some use mobiles?
There are some students that need to use mobiles. That's why Zoom's really good. It's really easy on a mobile. But most have access to laptops, and we have some laptops in our library that we lend out for lockdowns and remotes. But that, to me, is the key issue moving forward, is access to digital devices.
Yeah. With regard to IT support for glitches that teachers might come across as they're teaching online at home?
Good luck. No, none. No, that's not true. We have an email that we can access straight away, and someone will help us with Gordon online. Other than the technical support for students, that's probably something that I think institutes and providers need to think about. There's a lot of support for teachers, but no, maybe not so much. I'm the support for my students, and I think that's a bit of a hole that needs to be filled in the sector.
And how fast was the uptake with implementing the scanning function? Barbara's saying, I have some students who can be very resistant or nervous about using their devices for things.
The way that we overcame that, again, mind you, we've been back in the classroom, so it's a bit different to Melbourne, but we did it in class. They all sat there, we all downloaded the apps together. Then everyone who had a Samsung got together, everyone who had an iPhone got together. They practiced scanning things in class, sending it to me. I went and printed it, showed them what it looked like when it printed, corrected it, sent them back, and we did it in class to show them how easy it was to work.
Great. Thank you, Ange. That was really very informative. So let's go to Chisholm now, to Libby and Jigger, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Libby. I'm speaking first. And I'd like to begin with acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I'd like to acknowledge everyone who has joined us here today. Same topic, the way forward, how COVID's changed adult EAL delivery. I've been teaching adult migrants for 15 years, and Jigger, who is going to talk later, is the education, or one of the education managers, and he's behind a lot of this today. So well done, Jigger. I've taught a variety of classes at Chisholm. At the moment, I teach an evening class at Dandenong, or online, and most of the students are working during the day, and then they come to class between 6 and 9. Some of them have woken up at 4 or 5 a.m. and they're still with me at 9 p.m. So they're an amazing cohort of students. I also teach a day class at Frankston. Those students are totally different to the students I teach at night. And which is a bit annoying because I can't use the same material because they're so different. And on Friday last week, I got a new class, which is a 2-hour speaking class, and that will run for the next 5 weeks. And that's low-level students. So yeah, I've got a big variety. So my presentation is a bit more about me and the way I teach. Thanks, Jigger. So this is changing the way we deliver. And I think one of the main changes has had to be about considering the mental health of the students and the teachers. Yeah, lots of different concerns make learning very difficult. On site, we've got student services, we've got counsellors, and a lot of support for the students. But online, the students seem to not connect with those services so easily. So even though the services are there, our students don't tend to use them as much without some support. So we've got COVID, we've got the situation in Afghanistan, and so I've been talking about feelings, talking about some strategies that the students can use to support themselves and their families, and connecting them with our pathway officers, our supports, showing them how to access those services, and just following up to make sure that they get good outcomes. And for the teachers, we've got a wonderful group of people who are getting together, and they're putting themselves into groups where we do exercise, we have cooking classes, lots of different things to support each other, just so that we're not sitting in front of the screens for so long, which is not so good for our mental and physical health. So yeah, considering that. Okay, so we've got the resource sharing. So a lot of the this wasn't done so well for us at Chisholm because I think we were all so busy and everything was paper-based. So now with sharing the resources, we've got things online. It's much easier to flick them onto the shared drive, which is happening a lot more. Yeah, so our students are also, I think when we first started, we had a bit of a drop in numbers. So this was probably one of the things that students dropped out without really knowing, I think. So we had a big team of people, the teachers, the pathway officers, the EMs, the admin staff, all working to call the students, talk to them individually and get them to just try the class. You know, if you try it, you might enjoy it. So that's what happened. And a lot of them did come back. We've got
Libby, sorry, just conscious of the time.
Okay.
Jigger has got to come on. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So yeah. So we've got those special. Yeah. There we go. That's the right screen. Thanks, Jigger. All right. So we've got the changes happening to the AMEP program that I think came at a great time. Without that 510 restriction, it's been wonderful for the students. You can really prioritise what they need to learn. It's allowed us to do those specialty classes. We've got a Moodle site running, but we're not using it much yet. Jigger will talk more about that later. We've put all our student files on our digital SharePoint, which will be so good for when students transition to other classes. And yeah, Jigger, do you want to? Oh, yes, we've got the what worked. So in class, we've, I think online you have to do short, sharp activities more than those bigger ones. I'm more likely to scaffold a task so that every student can do it the same thing rather than having different activities for each student. I think breakout rooms are great if you've got the right combination of students in there. We try and get our students to keep their cameras on, which helps a lot. And I think it's really good to be able to get to know your students because you've got more individual time with them. We've also lent a lot of our students laptops and dongles, which has helped. Also, we use WhatsApp, Edmodo, Seesaw, and some teachers are probably using other things to send work to students, to collect their work and to contact the students, which is very useful when you're online because the things that don't work, you've got those other platforms that you can connect with them. And the things that don't work, I think it takes a lot more time. Lucky we're not doing anything else to be a teacher at the moment because you've got to be more organised. We've got, if you have the wrong combination of students in a breakout room, they can sit there and not know what's going on. So that sometimes doesn't work.
Just, you're nearly up to 10 minutes there, Libby.
Okay. All right, Jigger.
Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Margaret. What has worked and what hasn't worked, and what changes do we see? As Libby mentioned, and I'm sure you all have experienced that, we were all thrown into this unknown, and we had to come up with a strategy. So what was happening with Chisholm was we were in the transition. We had our LMS, which is Moodle that we use. We already had resources, digital resources that we were putting them up, but it wasn't functional. So what happened was last year when we went into the first lockdown, that's the first thing that we focused on. We started putting all the digital resources on Moodle and made sure that they were all accessible for all the teachers, because of course, as you could imagine, not having resources that you're used to could make your life a bit difficult when you're teaching. But then the second bit, of course, as you could imagine, was Zoom. So what we ended up doing, we've got a passport PEC application where you can go and register yourself for PDs. We ran a few training sessions for Moodle, Zoom, and made sure that our teachers were up to scale to deliver online. And the good thing was when we came back after the first lockdown ended, we were able to upskill our students while they were in the classroom, and a lot of teachers ended up creating online folders with the students in the classroom. So lockdown 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to be honest, have been much easier and much smoother than the first one. So we've now transported everything to our shared drive, which is Office 365. So again, students and teachers can share things easily. We've got teachers using OneNote. What has worked from a management's perspective, the biggest change for students, I feel, is because we went online, there weren't any physical barriers for students. So what has happened is where we had offsites, and we used to have mixed classes where we might have level 1, 2, 3 students in the same class, we were able to segregate them and put them in their own levels. So, that it made lives easier, of course, for students, teachers, and I think that has been one of the biggest positives of delivering online. We were able to lend out laptops to most of our students who were in need, and in some cases, if they did not have access to internet, we were able to lend them out dongles as well. The biggest positive that has happened and prepared us for this was learning journeys. That's what we offer for PD throughout the year to our teachers. And a lot of PDs were e-assessments, blended learning, and most of the delivery that happens online. So I think we were kind of in the making, and after the first lockdown, everything pretty much came together. And of course, nothing is perfect, but we've got a system that most probably works 99% efficiently now. So that has been a big change. I'll stop there because I'm very conscious of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jigga. Now, just a couple of questions there for Libby and Jigga. Do you have a student loan policy? Oh, sorry, I've just lost it. Do you have a student loan policy? Have you got a partnership with a social enterprise, or what do you do there?
So not at the moment. We have tried, but because as you can imagine, it's a big institution, it does have to go through a few levels of approvals. So we do have a couple of them in pipeline, but nothing approved yet. But we've been lending out the laptops and things that we have as a resource within the TAFE.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Libby and Jigga. That was very interesting. Now we have Matt Hines from Learning for Employment. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. So no PowerPoint from me today, just an old school talking head on the screen. So good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people from whose land I am joining you today. So today I want to spend some time talking about the impact that remote delivery has had on the quality of teaching and learning as experienced by teachers from Learning for Employment. I also want to talk about the need for us as a sector to be advocating for equal access to digital devices and remote learning opportunities for all of our students. So Learning for Employment, or LFE, as many of you would know it as, is a network of community sector RTOs and Learn Locals. So we deliver EAL framework through C and AMEP. Most of our students are between course in initial and Cert 2 in EAL. So most of our students are those low-level students. So we work across Melbourne's west and northwest, as well as in Ballarat and here in Geelong, where I'm based. So in preparing for today's session, I spoke to a number of our managers and coordinators, many of whom are in attendance today, so welcome, to gain an insight into the impact that COVID had on their delivery. Each provider, each teacher, each student has had their own individual experience during this time, and I hope to provide an overview of the key challenges we have faced. So throughout 2020 and 2021, COVID-19 has hit the communities in which we work pretty hard. The suburbs in which most of our classes are run are names you would now be familiar with if you've been tuning in to the daily COVID press conferences. From Craigieburn in the north to Tarneit in the southwest, from Altona and out to Melton. Having been designated hotspots for much of the past 18 months, very few of our classes have had the opportunity to return to on-site learning in any form. Within a short period of time in March 2020, our teachers had to pivot, as they say, to remote delivery. Most expected it just to last a few weeks. As relatively small community organisations, our providers were not backed up by the infrastructure of a TAFE or a university. We didn't have LMSs that allow students to log in and access learning materials remotely. We don't have IT departments. Very few of our organisations even have IT staff. And we don't have libraries from which students can borrow laptops and dongles. Despite this, our teachers have been able to continue delivering to our students, maintaining their engagement and fulfilling the contractual requirements of C and AMEP, which themselves have been changing throughout this period. When I think about how our students adapted to remote learning, I like to think back to pre-2020 when, in teaching learning strategies, we would have conversations with students about how they can improve their language acquisition through studying at home after class. We would ask, do you have a quiet space at home in which to study? Do you have someone who can help you and with whom you can practice? Do you have access to a computer and the internet at home? Back then, for many of our students, the answers would have been no. And for most, that is still the case today. So heading into remote delivery, this is the situation our students and teachers found themselves in. I think it's always important to distinguish between remote learning by choice and remote learning as a result of stay-at-home orders. Very few of our students would have chosen to study remotely, and even now, after 18 months of doing so, almost all are keen to return to the classroom as soon as possible. The same goes for our teachers. There are, of course, some exceptions. Remote learning for 18 months has been tough. Tough on our students, tough on our teachers, and tough on our support staff too. There have certainly been some positives. Teachers have rapidly developed new skills in teaching online that perhaps they never thought they would need. There is greater teamwork between teachers as they try to share the workload of developing new materials and as they share knowledge of new websites and apps for them to try with their students. We also now have a wealth of resources that can be used both remotely and in classroom settings. And many of our students have also gained new digital skills, sometimes from scratch and to the surprise of their teachers as to how rapidly they've learned them. But quite simply, full-time remote language learning for extended periods of time where the student has not chosen to do so does not work for most. Shifting to remote delivery really shone a light on the digital divide that exists within our society and the impact that poverty has on preventing equal access to remote learning opportunities. While the demographics of our students do vary widely from provider to provider, class to class, and region to region, very few of our students have access to digital devices, the support, and the digital skills to enable them to fully engage remotely. Anecdotally, fewer than 5% of our students have access to a computer at home. And for some of these, that computer is their child's, that their school has provided them for their own remote learning. Also anecdotally, around 10 to 20% of our students don't have access to a digital device at all and have relied on landline phone calls and printed materials to remain engaged. That does leave the bulk of our students who have access to a smartphone and therefore, in theory, should be able to engage remotely through a digital device. I say in theory as in practice, just because someone has access to a smartphone doesn't necessarily mean they know how to use it as a learning tool. Some of our providers had a window of opportunity early this year and classes were able to resume on site, very briefly and with low density. Many took the opportunity to use this time to upskill their students. However, with both programs being assessment driven, much of this valuable time was also spent catching up on assessments that were unable to be completed remotely. For some students, there was and still is a reluctance or fear of using technologies that they are unfamiliar with, though this is changing. Some have limited data or data caps, meaning using video calls or taking photos of their work is out of the question. Some smartphones are the only phone in the household and priority of data usage is given to maintaining contact with family overseas or for helping children with their homeschooling. Some students have limits on their phones which prevent them from making phone calls or sending text messages, let alone attachments. This is the reality we found ourselves in. For those students who can use a smartphone as a learning tool, it still has its limitations. Text size is tiny, leading to eye strain, and then there's the continual scrolling up and down a screen to view a simple text. Teaching via smartphone has its limitations and cannot be considered quality education. There has been an attempt to address the digital divide through an employment fund from the Department of Education, Skills and Employment. However, to date, this fund has been ineffective. Access to the funds is limited to C and is administered by the student's job active case manager. If the case manager is willing to support them, the student is required to purchase the device themselves to later be reimbursed. This places the fund outside the realm of most of our students. The fund also assumes that the students have not only the money, but also the device knowledge, software setup knowledge, and the language skills to inquire and purchase a device. And of course, with all the shops closed, we then need to have the students understand the process of click and collect. So what's been the feedback from teachers throughout all of this? Teachers have welcomed their newfound skills. Some have loved working from home, while others have hated it. The fatigue of hours on end of Zoom or of repetitive lessons over the phone is real. And many have also had to juggle homeschooling or caring for family members. For most, it has really made them appreciate the value of face-to-face learning, the value of interaction, the classroom camaraderie, the natural use of language that occurs in face-to-face settings, mingling activities, excursions, the ability to provide instant support to individual students when and as they need it as you work your way around the room, the ability to fully understand the progress that each and every one of your students is making across all macro skills. The ability to provide new arrivals with settlement education, experiencing things together, becoming part of a community. For all of this, nothing beats face-to-face learning. So the key question of this session is about the future. So what permanent changes do I see moving forward into 2020 and beyond? So digital literacy training is here to stay as part of our offering. Both C and AMEP will be including digital literacy training as part of their requirements going forward. And teachers, at least in C, will be expected to be assessing against the digital literacy skills framework. There will be a requirement of teachers to have knowledge of remote delivery strategies and skills to teach digital literacy. I know many are looking forward to the professional development and the resourcing that C and AMEP are looking to provide as this is introduced. Many students are also keen to continue developing their skills. Blended delivery is likely to continue too, with students having at least part of their week delivered remotely. The important thing here is determining the activities that will take place remotely and ensuring all students have access to the devices and the skills needed to engage. The Department of Education, Skills and Employment will soon be making digital literacy project funding available. We wait to see what this will entail and whether it will assist in bridging the digital divide. In AMEP, they are looking to develop an online learning platform, which will be accessible to all providers. But for me, a key role that we'll need to play as a sector moving forward into 2022 is to continue to advocate on behalf of our students, our teachers, and the success of our programs in addressing the impacts of the digital divide and poverty. If digital literacy is to be a key part of future delivery, then this needs to be addressed. If the ability to pivot all students equally to remote delivery is also to be expected, then this also needs to be addressed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt. You raised some very, very important issues, and I think we all understand where you're coming from. Thank you. Just a question here. How have you dealt with privacy for teachers if using their personal phones for a lot of remote delivery?
So they would be using, that's as in calling. I'm guessing they'll be blocking their numbers. There are a number of the coordinators online here if they would like to talk about how they've managed it.
I can just speak for one or two of my staff. We either provided them with another little SIM card or they bought their own SIM card and just used that so that there was no issues. But generally, I think most teachers just use their phone and weren't too concerned about the privacy issue, whether for good or bad, I don't know.
A couple of people have said yes, it is an issue with that. How do you deal with teachers using their phones? It's one for us, one that I guess it's been an evolving situation and we've done our best with it. So thank you for raising that. Thanks again, Matt. That was really interesting. Next we have Gulhan Yilmaz and Melissa Morrow from Vic Uni.
Thanks, Margaret. I'm going to kick us off. And thank you, Matt. I have to say that so much of what you said is actually in my presentation. So, but thank you. Yeah, I was just nodding furiously. I will go ahead with my presentation. There are some different takes on it. We are actually a large-scale organisation, unlike yours. But interestingly, well, not interestingly, it's to be expected. Our students are from the same kind of cohort and experience all those sort of challenges that you spoke of. So I will just start sharing my screen so we can. Apologies, I'm just going to get this started. Okay, I can't see anyone while I'm delivering, so I don't know how anyone will be able to get my attention, but we'll see how we go. So I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners. I'm on Dja Dja Wurrung country here in Blackwood, where I live, but I would like to acknowledge all the country where people are on today, to acknowledge the elders past, present and future. So our presentation today, I'm Melissa Morrow. I'm the campus.
Sorry, Melissa. Your screen isn't sharing at the moment. Do you want to try again?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know why let's try again. I apologize for that, everyone.
No worries.
Okay. All
Looking
right,
good.
can you all
that.
see it now?
Looking
Yeah,
good,
great.
Melissa.
Good, sorry about that. I'm usually not too bad with this stuff, but anyway, so I'm the team leader for the Sunshine Campus, and I'm here with my colleague Gulhan Yilmaz, who teaches our very low level students, so including our pre-literate students or students who have not yet learned how to read and write in their own language. I'm going to provide a bit of a general overview. As a team leader, I've been in that position to sort of, I did teach as well through COVID, but I, as a team leader, I have a bit more of an overview position, whereas Gulhan's able to give you a really great insight into, you know, the coalface experience of delivering to really low level learners, you know, with all those things that Matt referred to, all those challenges. So I'm going to start with talking about the challenges. And one of the things I really liked about Matt's presentation is that I've noticed during COVID that a little bit of what I like to call toxic positivity has sort of seeped into some things where we have to always just be, you know, look on the bright side and everything. And, you know, there are some really horrible downsides to it all. And I'd say that people in our line of work get to see that. Our students are in a hot spot as well. And we've had lots of students sick with COVID. And you know, there's lots of downsides. So I'm just going to start by talking about those challenges and those downsides. So yes, we had an LMS as well, but like other people have referred to, VU has one, but it's really not geared to our learners. Once again, it's the digital literacy gap that is the issue there. Our students lack the skills. It's not set up with a usability framework that is great for beginning users of technology. So it has been used by some of our teachers, but they tend to be at the higher levels. And they were able to prepare their students for it before we went remote. So it hasn't really been an option for us. Huge diversity in our digital literacy for our staff as well as our students. Obviously for staff, they were able to have basic equipment and so on, but still an enormous gap for a lot of them in what they could do. Struggled enormously with Zoom, some of them. Just basic computer skills were really difficult for a lot of our staff. I shouldn't say a lot, for some of our staff who have got by for however long with what is required to be able to teach the basic skills they need to teach for the curriculum that they deliver. But for some of them, that didn't involve a great deal of computer skills. So there was a huge diversity. There was a significant digital literacy gap for many of our students for all the reasons Matt spoke about. So lack of equipment, lack of access to the internet, the lack of skills, all of that stuff. And of course, ironically, the place where they were learning those skills was on campus with us, using our computers on campus, which in Sunshine, fantastic array of computer labs for our students to use, but completely useless when everybody's remote. And it's great to hear that there were lots of providers who were able to provide their students with laptops to loan or whatever. To be honest, I got very green listening to that. We just haven't had that. We just don't have that capacity to lend laptops to our students. We barely have enough to cover our teaching staff. So we just didn't have that as an option. And a lot of our students were learning from phones. So, and then all of that is occurring in, you know, this horrible, horrible pandemic, you know, it's so the stress that others have referred to played a huge role, impacting our students and our staff all grappling with these challenges. Naturally, we did lose a number of students at the start, and our numbers even now are quite a bit lower than they were, say, you know, 2 years ago, for example. But I will sort of balance that later on in my presentation. We even had some staff who had to go on leave or who left altogether because it really was just such a huge challenge for so many people. I say some, it was a minority, but I think it's important because it's all part of the context of what we experienced as an organisation. So the good news, it was just a privilege to watch the way staff upskilled themselves, used, you know, their own ingenuity and their energy and their dedication to just push through, teach themselves skills or avail of PDs that we provided them with on how to learn to use Zoom, how to do all the things they needed to do. They, as I said, taught themselves IDT skills. There were also fantastic low-tech solutions from our teachers on things like getting packages of paper, you know, paper-based books together. We had teachers dropping stuff off all over the areas where our students live, like in their cars, popping it in mailboxes and so on during lockdown. And of course, importantly, they all met their students where they were. You know, I mean, we didn't really have any other choice. And that's what drove all the solutions that our amazing teachers came up with. And of course, the students, I mean, what they were able to do with their phones, engaging in high-level courses like EAL 3 and 4 and further studies, using a telephone, you know, an iPhone, a smartphone. I mean, I think that's incredible adaptability. So that was
Melissa,
all very...
2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to
so
go for your 10. Oh, yeah.
Oh, golly, I've gone really over time, haven't I?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, I'll be quick. So I'm going to throw to Gulhan now. Sorry, Gulhan. I'm going to stop sharing. It's all that muck up at the beginning. My apologies.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Melissa. I'll just quickly run through it. VU tries to offer every applicant a place, and that opened the door to low-level literacy learners. The low-level literacy learners were ISLPR ratings of 0 to 1- and ACSF level P1. We had to create a learning environment quickly for the students, and LMS, as Melissa mentioned, was not, it exceeded learner capabilities. Even though we have it there, the students were not able to access it and use it. So we tried Postal, and that was unfeasible. And then Zoom meetings. So with the backward design framework in mind, we had to deliver over Zoom. So how do we get students onto Zoom? We tried WhatsApp. And with Zoom, we had to teach them around netiquette and how to use Zoom appropriately, having the cameras on, being on mute while the class was delivered. And when we delivered on Zoom, we used things that we could actually create and use to deliver effectively. I know there's H5P, but a lot of time, and Padlet, they were quite time consuming. So I sort of limited it to PowerPoint. I found that very, very effective. Now, when delivering and accessing students, we tried to embrace what their knowledge was and what their skills were. So WhatsApp was the most effective to use for my cohort and their learning pedagogies. With WhatsApp, we were able to, it was accessible and familiar to learners. A lot of them had that on their devices. It created an opportunity for a virtual classroom. We were able to provide a flipped classroom model where we uploaded videos and content to learners prior to lessons. And it gave an opportunity for community of inquiry where students engaged with each other and they were able to communicate and have more effective learning opportunities. Pre-class, we posted videos, we posted work activities. All the areas and components were teacher directed and teacher led. So prior to class, we'd remind them of the Zoom on WhatsApp, of the meeting, what time, and we'd share the Zoom link meeting. And then we'd have those activities for them. And we'd offer teaching on Zoom, and then whatever we delivered on Zoom, we would post it on WhatsApp. So all those screens would neatly spit into WhatsApp with an audio recording to follow. So students saw the class materials and then they had a recording of what was part of that slide. So post-class, again, the activities would be up there and then the students would be able to practice and do their work and then take a photo of their work and send it back to us for immediate feedback and correction. And I think that was really important that we're able to offer that feedback and correction for students. One lesson, for one day's lesson, you'd have at least 200 to 300 messages that come across. This isn't my class, this is today's notifications for messages and texts received for that session. So yeah, thanks Melissa, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Gulhan. I'm just going to share screen today. Again, sorry. So basically, as you can see, Gulhan exemplified all the things I was just speaking of about meeting students where they're at and being creative with how they managed to deliver in the very limited sort of context that we, what was available to us. So our learnings going forward basically is that I was amazed at our capacity for upskilling and adapting, both for ourselves and our students. We've held on to most of our students, which has been amazing given what they've been through, but I'll come back to that in a second. The other thing is we haven't just held on to them, they haven't been treading water, they've actually made progress. And for us, that's really important. It's been great to see students with low level literacy actually moving up through into other courses, which has been amazing. And this is just huge for us. We've really reached such a great understanding of the role that our program plays in our students' lives, not just in a pandemic, but broadly. And this, it's just been critical in the pandemic, but it's critical more broadly as this sort of continuing sort of thing in their lives. And that's why it's been so important that while it's not been perfect, our delivery, and I agree with Matt on all the things he said, and I'll touch on them in a second, we've been able to give them something that is very worthwhile and valuable, even though it's not ideal. And that's partly to do with the quality of our teaching. So we have actually embedded remote learning in our ongoing delivery for a supplementary part of what we do. So one day a week, our students have, not the lowest levels, from EAL1 up, they they have an ongoing, what we call half-day review and revision, and that's going to remain remote for the foreseeable future. Bottom line is, though, face-to-face is still fundamental to how we operate and for our students, because it's what our students need and want and what's possible face-to-face. And of course, because of the digital literacy inequities that we spoke about. At the end of the day, until it could be addressed, face-to-face is what is going to be the future for a program like ours, unless we were in a very different position. So that was a very rushed end to it, because I'm trying to make up for lost time. So I don't know whether we'll have time for questions, but
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa and Gulhan. We haven't got time for questions. We've sort of gone a fair way over, so we don't want to enter to the next presenter. So we've got from Melbourne Polytechnic now, Francis Laricha and Mary Laricha. Thank you, Francis and Mary.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd just like to say, yeah, being last, I sort of agree with everything that's said. But anyway, we'll talk from a Melbourne Polytechnic perspective. I'm not in the classroom at the moment, but Mary will just do a very quick show of our Moodle, our LMS at the end. So Melbourne Poly, we have campuses at Epping, which have adult and youth specific classes. We have campuses at Greensborough, Param, Preston, and a community site at Broadmeadows. So we've got quite a mix of learners there, quite different cohorts, and we have certificates from course 0 to Cert 4. We have one Cert 4 class in further study, the rest are all access, and we have CAMEP and skills first. So it is quite a mix of students. So I might just quickly just give a bit of a brief background. Last year, it seemed I felt like we were just constantly hurdling and jumping over hurdles and finding solutions to issues because of lockdown and COVID, and it's just this constant running and racing. And but you know, words like pivot and Zoom, normality, they all took on new meanings for us. And we just felt like we were, I don't know, we just felt constantly we were just trying to work things out. But anyway, at the same time that all of this COVID was happening and lockdowns were happening, Melbourne Poly also had its own stuff going on in the background. So we were also looking at, you know, our educational strategy, our plan. We were looking at blended learning. Teachers were fortunate enough last year to have quite a lot of PD on, you know, blended learning, and also continued this year with, we use Moodle. So there was a lot of PD happening with Moodle, as I say, with blended learning. And we were also looking at that digital literacy skills framework. You know, we have the AMP and the C. I think it was mentioned earlier, the digital literacy skills framework. So we were looking at that. We were also reviewing our teaching and learning materials. So we were thinking of all of this stuff, and I think COVID just sort of hurried us along and hastened all of these things that we were sort of bubbling away in the background, but we sort of had to sort of act and do stuff. Okay, so what's changed? We started off last year, we were sending hard copy to our students, and as it's been mentioned, you know, there is that digital divide, I think, across all, you know, all providers. So we had hard copy sent to our students. These hard copy became learner resource books. So we've got learner resource books for all of our certificate levels, and it's much like there's formative tasks in there, and we have tried to embed and link all of that to our LMS, which is our Moodle. So our teachers have worked collaboratively and in teams. We've got the sites, Moodle sites for each certificate level, and people contribute to both our hard copy and our Moodle. And we've really tried to link things in and embed those digital literacy skills and embed digital literacy in what we're actually doing. It also, you know, some people have, in the high levels, they've tried some flipped classroom. So that's sort of come about as well. So all of this stuff, Mary will show us the LMS in a moment, but I might just talk about some permanent changes. As I said, we're linking our hard copy to our LMS. I think it was mentioned by others that, you know, we had Moodle, but really it's been further developed and further used last year and especially this year. So it's really become a bit of a centre of what we're doing. It was, you know, I think all providers were, you know, it was classroom delivery, and it was computer. When we went to the computer room, that's when digital skills were worked on. But with COVID and with these lockdowns, that's really changed. So we really are trying to embed those digital learnings and those digital skills in what we do, using smartphones, teaching our learners how to navigate websites. Okay, so what views have changed? I think that really what has, as I said, I think we knew it, but I think it has come to the forefront, the real need to assist our learners in gaining digital literacy skills, which are really important for their own participation, for accessing information, and to navigate the community. So that's really come to the forefront. I think our ideas of what our students can do have been challenged. You know, last year, if you said to me a course student would be Zooming or would be able to go into a breakout room, I would have just probably rolled my eyes and said, oh, I don't think so. But I think it's really, it's really challenged our thinking about what our learners can do, because they've been amazing. Same with our teachers, you know, they've really upskilled. Myself, if you said to me last year, you'll be doing this presentation via Zoom and screen sharing, it would have filled me with double the dread that it has today. But so I think we've all sort of all of our skill level has really increased, and our confidence has really grown. As it's been mentioned, this whole thing of digital literacy has come to the forefront, and as part of that, at Melbourne Poly, we applied in EAL and have received a small seeding grant where we will do some research into what exactly are the key digital enabling skills our students need, and what are our strengths as a teaching team, and where are our gaps, and what PD do we need. So that's really exciting for us, because, you know, we're trying to enable our students and their learning and their participation. I'm probably running out of time.
Yeah, Frances, we've just got a couple of minutes left because we need to go into breakout rooms.
Okay,
so
I might stop sharing, and I just might let Mary just show our LMS, our Moodle, and our permanent changes there. So Mary.
Excellent.
Hi everyone, I'm obviously Mary, and I'm also a Certificate 3 teacher at Melbourne Polytechnic. I'm going to show you hopefully the Certificate 3 Moodle site, and I'm going to try and share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I don't know how many times I've said that this year. So this is our Certificate 3 Moodle site, and firstly, this Moodle site that you're looking at is similar across all certificate levels. So it would be the same for course to Certificate 3. There is a teacher view and a student view, and obviously, whilst I'm teaching, I'm on student view. As Frances mentioned, a permanent change that we have implemented is linking our hard copy learner resource books to our Moodle sites, and that involves a lot of the formative tasks that are in the learner resource books placed onto the Moodle site. And I might show you one little thing that actually the students have given great feedback on. It's this little search icon, and a lot of the time, students say, oh, I can't find that. Where is it on Moodle? And I've actually shown them, well, if you just go to the search function, it will take you straight there. And it makes it easy for them as well. And it also gives them a bit of practice on navigation. And I tend to use Moodle quite a lot to get them to navigate as well. The search function is there, it makes it easy for them, and you can see that there is the interactive content here, and that complements and consolidates their learning. If we go further here, we have the weeks, and each week has different activities, and we also have the lesson as well. Okay, and I'll just scroll very quickly and I'll just show there are many, many activities there. Okay, this is our lesson. The students will see that that's the lesson. They can click on that link and that lesson is there for them. And then there's more interactive content and they can click on that. And the interactive content are a variety of little activities for them. They could be used in class as consolidation. They could be used as flipped classroom. They could be used as self-paced activities. So it's really up to the student and student learning, I guess. So the permanent change is that each week there is a focus on a unit and the accompanying lesson. And the last thing that I would show them is that with COVID, we have a tab on the left, which if they click onto that COVID-19 information, that's updated quite regularly, as we know, because of what actually happens or has happened, and the information is there for them, and it's also in various languages as well. That's our Moodle site.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary. That's fantastic to see all the work that's gone into that Moodle. Don't underestimate that. So we're nearing the end of time, but we would love it if you had an opportunity to have a quick chat in breakout rooms just to discuss. You've heard a lot of interesting information this afternoon. What are the 1 or 2 skills or teaching strategies implemented during the pandemic that you will apply in the future? You may already be applying them. You might have heard of something this afternoon that you'd like to have a try of. So if you could just go into your breakout rooms now when they pop up, and we'll leave you there for, it'll probably be about 8 to 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had the chance to have a good little share for just 10 minutes or so. So we're really at the end of our afternoon. I would like to thank you all for coming, and special thank you to the presenters. It's not easy to present, but you did a great job, and you had to condense so much work into little 10-minute segments. So you did a great job. Thank you. You had lots of energy with so many of you talking about the things that you've been doing. I'd like to take the opportunity to promote some upcoming VicTESOL professional learning. We've got an event coming up, which Dave will be sharing in the chat, which is looking at a model of hybrid and flipped learning, which was developed by Monash University in collaboration with Carringbush Adult Education. So that really is a great follow-on from this event. So you may be interested to join us on that one. We've got our online communities of practice, which are ongoing, but you're more than welcome to join that if you'd like to jump online and register there. We've got our VicTESOL AGM coming up on the 9th of December, and it's going to be, well, it was to be at the Immigration Museum, but it's going to be a remote event now. We've decided to stick with that for ease of organisation. There will be somebody from the Immigration Museum there, but we would really welcome anybody who'd like to have a think about joining the VicTESOL committee. It's made up of teachers from all the different sectors, and it's great professional learning for yourself to be part of the committee, learn about other sectors, contribute in different ways, and I would really urge you to have a think about it. You can also be involved in contributing by doing such as others have done today, and that's put your hand up to present. And often it's about sharing. You've all got great things to share. We know there are so many fabulous things going on. So I urge you to have a think about getting more involved. Thanks so much again. The QR code has a survey, which we would love it if you could fill in. It will also be in the chat, and you will also get a follow-up email if you don't get a chance to do the survey. We really value your feedback on our events. They help us by really letting us know what it is you're thinking about what we're doing and what could we do better next time. So please take a minute or two to do that if you haven't done it already. We squeezed a lot in today, so we didn't have a lot of time for Q&A, but I know that a lot of things were covered, and I hope it was of value to you. So thank you very much, everybody, and look forward to seeing you at our next VicTESOL event. Thanks, everybody.